completely different situation, I think, to the memorial service when they made a very big fuss about the security issue and saying that that was why they couldn't visit. And I don't think many people really believed that that was why they couldn't visit.
Jonathan, it's great to see you. And as always, love getting your perspective and your expertise. And, there was a huge story that happened this week. Prince Harry had a secret meeting with the Queen along with Meghan, the first time that she has been back in the UK since they left the royal family. So was this a totally impromptu meeting or was this planned for a little while?
Well, it's hard to know. Certainly, I don't think it's an easy thing for the Queen to arrange meetings at all at the moment, maybe even with family. Since she was ill with COVID and before that was taken into hospital last October, we've seen a lot less of her. And I think that just at her age and in her condition, it takes some planning for her to be able to come up with meetings and meet people. Now, that might be a bit less the case for private meetings like this one with family members, but certainly it will at least have involved some planning because even in her condition, the Queen still has quite a busy schedule. So I would say that there was probably some planning and maybe they wanted to keep it quiet even if it was planned ahead in advance because perhaps both sides thought it was better not to have too much glare of the media on this kind of meeting.
Yeah, I mean, do we think that Prince Harry was probably the one that initiated this meeting since he was traveling to the Invictus Games and decided just to make a bit of a pit stop?
Well, certainly I think that if Prince Harry decided to try and arrange this meeting, if it was a sort of reputational fix, that would have made a lot of sense. Because really, I think the behaviour of Harry and Meghan in recent months has been, well, quite difficult for the royal family to stomach. And I say that in particular about the argument over security for a visit to the UK for Prince Philip's memorial service. Of course, you'll remember that Harry and Meghan said that they didn't feel they would get enough security because the police wasn't going to give them security even at their own expense. They wanted some arrangement where they would pay the British police in order to be their security. And that was not granted to them because it wasn't deemed to be an actual security need. So I suppose that argument is still going on because they're pursuing that in the courts, in fact. And I think that then to be seen to be flying to the Netherlands for their own charitable purposes and with their Netflix film crew in tow for their own PR as well, perhaps they would have thought it looked a bit ridiculous to say that they couldn't have been with the royal family, who are all heavily guarded at an event like Prince Philip's memorial anyway, but they could go to Holland where they won't have the British police guarding them. Obviously, these arguments about security are things that most of us aren't used to. We don't have to have that level of security when we go to places, or most of us don't anyway, whether fairly deserved or not, that they're divas about these sorts of things and they want to be treated like celebrities. And so I think that if they decided that this was a good opportunity to have a stopover on their flight to the Netherlands to go and see the Queen, that would really kill two birds with one stone. And they would be able to see her, not having seen her for some time, in person, and perhaps also do some bridge building, because obviously relations have been strained between them and the rest of the family anyway. So perhaps that meeting would also have been intended to make a bit of peace, or at least to start that process.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned the security and how that was such a big deal. I mean, did they have any security with them this time around? I mean, they kind of got in and out without really anybody seeing them. So it seemed like security wasn't an issue this time.
Well, of course, part of good security planning is exactly that. If you can arrive and leave somewhere virtually unnoticed, that's part of good security. And of course, I dare say there will have been some level of security protecting them. And I think that the low-key nature of it was probably part of the security measures put in place. Certainly, look, Prince Harry is, I suppose, a target for terrorists, for example, just as much as other members of the royal family. He may have opted out of his duties, but that doesn't necessarily stop him being a target or a scalp, let's say, that terrorist organizations would like. That means that there is a real threat. So whether he overblows the nature of that threat as part of his general reputation or appearance as an international celebrity or not, there is some truth underneath the idea that he needs some level of protection. And so I dare say whatever was deemed to be appropriate for this visit, the Foreign Office and the police would have put it in place for his visit. But again, it's a completely different situation, I think, to the memorial service when they made a very big fuss about the security issue and saying that that was why they couldn't visit. And I don't think many people really believed that that was why they couldn't visit. I think people just thought they didn't want to visit for that important event, certainly important for the Queen. And I think that that was damaging to their reputation.